Hello and welcome back to the Shakey Sonnet Show. I'm Tootight Lautrec and we're here once again in the Sonnetarium at the bottom of the down staircase in the permanently sequestered remainders section of an unnamed local library which may or may not have some lions couchant sitting on the front steps waiting for you to stop by and say hello. Now, I've hauled out my crystal ball just to see, perhaps to see if we're headed in the right direction or not. And I wanted to peer deeply into the crystal ball to see where we should go. And I see we've got earth. I see we've got water, very heavy water. We'll be traveling to ever lighter regions where we'll find air and we'll find fire. And we'll also find Sonnets 44 and 45, coincidentally. Well, before we begin our travels, I do want to say that we are going to be doing Sonnets 44 and 45, and my crystal ball tells me that, no, indeed, I'm not just squishing together sonnets to get them out of the way. We really do have a reason for pairing up some of these sonnets. We, meaning the royal we, I. 44 and 45 are intimately connected, and in fact I'm going to be reading them as one whole long poem, as if it were a 28-line sonnet, and we'll read it as such, and the four elements are going to play a very large part in it. Let me push that. Whew. It's okay. Let me just push this over to the side. It's very heavy. This must be made up of earth and water because it's very, very heavy. We're going to be looking at the four elements, earth and water, the very heavy elements, and fire and air, the very light elements, which will be consolidated in lightness, just like my personality. So, the qualities of heaviness and lightness are all linked to the wish of the narrator to cast off this mortal coil and get rid of the bag of bones that we all carry around with us, and just, snip snap with a blink of an eye, travel with the speed of thought to the loved one. And that's what these poems are going to be about. And so, speaking of snip snapping, flying off with the speed of thought, I've adorned my handy dandy flying suit because flu powder being on double, triple back order because of the pandemic, etc. And although this looks like what one might call a COVID stone, actually the COVID stone is the 14 or so extra pounds that I've gained while partaking in gourmet cheeses and wines to console myself while in quarantine. And as such, I've broken my broomstick, so I've had to resort to my flying cloak, and so we'll get right down to it and we'll travel snippety snappity to Sonnets 44 and 45. Swoosh! 44 and 45. Sonnets 44 and 45. I'm going to just read them right straight through from line 1 to line 28, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Sonnets 44 and 45. If the dull substance of my flesh were thought, injurious distance should not stop my way. For then, despite of space, I would be brought from limits far remote where thou dost stay. No matter then, although my foot did stand upon the farthest earth removed from thee, for nimble thought can jump both sea and land as soon as think the place where he would be. But thought kills me, that I am not thought, to leap large lengths of miles when thou art gone, but that so much of earth and water wrought, I must attend time's leisure with my moan, receiving naught by elements so slow, but heavy tears, badges of either's woe. The other two, slight air and purging fire, are both with thee wherever I abide. The first my thought, the other my desire. These present absent with swift motion slide, For when these quickest elements are gone in tender embassy of love to thee, my life, being made of four, with two alone sinks down to death, oppressed with melancholy, until life's composition be recured by those swift messengers returned from thee, who even but now come back again assured of thy fair health, recounting it to me. This told, I joy, but then, no longer glad, I send them back again, and straight grow sad. So let's go through Sonnet 44 first, and then directly into 45. Sonnet 44 first. If the dull substance of my flesh were thought, so here I am weighed down by this stupid body of mine, and I would like to be able to travel as quick as thought. If the dull substance of my flesh were thought, injurious distance should not stop my way. There would be no amount of land before me to stop me from getting to you. For then, despite of space, I would be brought from limits far remote, where thou dost stay. We are separated. And I wish I could get to you just like that, but I can't. No matter then, although my foot did stand upon the farthest earth removed from thee, no matter how far I am, if I'm 100 miles away, if I'm 1,000 miles away, if I am all the way across the earth, it wouldn't matter if I could be with you as fast as thought. For nimble thought can jump both sea and land. Here I am in perhaps New York, and I see you there in England or in Russia or in Australia or New Zealand or Poland or any other place where China, where I might, where you may be separate from me. Nimble thought can jump both sea and land as soon as think the place where he would be. But thought kills me that I am not thought. The fact that I'm not thought and I am weighed down with this stupid body and I can't just fly to you just kills me, even thinking about it. I can think that, but I can't think myself to you. To leap large lengths of miles when thou art gone, but that much of earth and water wrought, I must attend time's leisure with my moan. I'm made up of the same elements that earth and water are made up of, and I am heavy and slow, and I must obey gravity, and I am subject to the limits of space. Receiving not by elements so slow, but heavy tears, badges of either's woe. So the elements that I'm made up of, earth and sea, or earth and water, all combine together just to create tears for me, to make me sad and to cry. You know, I'll sit in the garden and eat worms and cry because I can't get to you. And bad tears simply reward for thinking about you and not being able to get to you. So in the 1609 quarto, receiving not by elements, so that not has an S in it in the quarto, and it just simply means worthless things. And then, being all weighed down in heaviness, as I'll tell you, I know what that's like. We travel to lightness and air as if the pandemic has lifted and we've been able to go back to the gym and sweat into the oldies, get back our former lightness and air. But in this case, lightness and air and fire are thought and desire. So 45, the other two elements, slight air and purging fire, are both with thee wherever I abide. No matter where you go, my thoughts are with you and my desire is for you. The first, my thought, the other, my desire. There's the equation of air with thought and fire with desire. These present absent with swift motion slide. I love this line because it does create this sort of slip-slidey effect. You can almost see the thought and the desire flitting like flames over the tongue and flicking back and forth while the lover thinks of the beloved. For when these quicker elements are gone in tender embassy of love to thee, when I send these, the embassy, when I send these to you, my thoughts and my desires, my life being made of the four elements, earth, water, fire, and air, with two alone, sinks down to death. I'm thinking of you, lightness and air, fire, the fire of my desire and the airiness of my thoughts, and yet I'm pulled down to earth with the heaviness of my body once again. Until life's composition be recured by those swift messengers returned from thee, who even but now come back again, assured of thy fair health, recounting it to me. So perhaps a letter. I'm stuck here in my body, and the only way that I have, or that we have, of translating our thoughts and desires are through the messages that we send to one another. And while the desire flickers in my heart, I'm oppressed with melancholy, which is, I think, an extremely ugly phrase. Not melancholy, but just, I think Stephen Booth points out that melancholy, he calls it metrically oppressive, because there's an unstressed final syllable that rhymes with the final syllable of the 2 lines later. But it's just sinks down to death, oppressed with melancholy. And in some ways, it's a plodding sort of sounding sentence. So in some ways, I can see, the poor sap distressed at the heaviness of his or her body and sinking down into melancholy, but it's not a very pretty picture, let me just tell you. Until life's composition be recured by those swift messengers returned from thee, who even but now come back again assured of thy fair health, recounting it to me. You bring me letters, I bring you letters. This told, once I get the letters, or the message about you, from you, I joy, but then, no longer glad, I send them back again, and straight grow sad. So someone sends me a message and says that my beloved is fine, my beloved loves me, my beloved desires me as much as I love and miss and think of my beloved, and I send that message back, but then what do I have? I've got my big, fat, stupid body and no lover. So I'm sad anyway. So it's a pretty miserable sounding set of poems, but it's very cleverly done with the conceit of the 4 elements in it. So and it's also interesting, this short burst of joy in the couplet is a bit of a, like when you're waiting for that text or that phone call that never comes, and then you decide, well, it's past midnight and I will go to sleep and cry myself to sleep, but then you get the text or you get the phone call and that burst of joy, just to say that no, he or she is not coming over and have a good night, and then you hang up, and it does distill that moment of the joy of a message sent and received, and the disappointment of still being apart. So I find it a quite very cleverly done set of sonnets, and it does bring the lightness and air in at the end, as it should. In terms of a narrative progression, if we're going to think about a narrative progression, and why not, what have we got? From sonnet 1 to 17, we have the urging of someone to procreate. From 18 to 26, we have a love match. From 27 on, and now we're in 44 and 45, they're still separated. If we choose to believe that this is one couple that we've been following the entire time, that is one option for us to think about. And I do have to wonder, how long is this going to go on? And apparently, I did look ahead, it's going to go on until about sonnet 52, or until the sirens stop. So from sonnet 27 until now, sonnet 45, that's 18 sonnets. They've been separated if we consider that it's one couple they've been separated longer than they've been together at this point. Almost longer than they've been together. You know, like together. Before it was just like, oh, you should have a baby because you're so beautiful. But after the love match, things, you know, heated up and now they're separated. And to tell you the truth, I'm getting kind of, if this were a novel, I would be getting slightly tired of this this separation motif, although lovers who are separated are an interesting topic to follow. So I'll have to give Shakespeare the benefit of the doubt, and I'll have to give this 154 series, set of 154 sonnets, its due. But it's beginning to stretch a little bit. The love triangle spiced it up, sure, fine, that's always good. But it's beginning to wear a little bit thin. Even at the end of the procreation sonnets, where we began to see Shakespeare sort of using up all of his, blowing his wad, so to speak, I guess we could say. But that's only if we consider that there's only one narrator and one main love interest or friend. It could be, and I would love to see this staged one day, it could be a series of couples. These sonnets perhaps could be, because so many of them are doubled up in the 30s and the 40s, it could be a series of couples who are sending sonnets back and forth to one another. And it could be a situation like in the Decameron or in Canterbury Tales, where one set of lovers or one lover says, oh, well, I was missing my lover so much and I sent him this sonnet and he sent this sonnet back to me. And another says, well, that reminds me, I was missing my lover and I sent her this sonnet and she sent this sonnet back to me. So I could imagine there could be different possible permutations of these 154 poems that maybe is not or doesn't necessarily have to be tied to the idea of one lover and one beloved. I could go to my crystal ball here and see if there's any information about whether there's a male or a female designated in either of these poems, but just by my own intuition, I can say that no, there's no indication that the narrator or the love object is either male or female. So I could imagine any number of permutations for these sonnets. But even if you take these out of the context of the 154 poems that are here, if you erase the whole idea of a narrative, a progressive narrative, and you just take 44 and 45, they're lovely poems about isolation, separation, and using a very clever conceit of the four elements to bind them together. Now, wherever you are in the world, you know, we've learned a lot about separation and isolation in the past year or so. And wherever you are, just know that I'm happy that you're here with me across the internet, and I'm happy if you have invited me into your home and we can be together for a short amount of time. And between us, there are all the wonders of the world, and all we have to do is pay attention to them. Until we meet again, I'm Tootight Lautrec.